Right now, someone you once gave real emotional weight to isn't thinking about you at all. Not because they're cruel, not because you didn't matter, but because they were too busy surviving their own chaos to hold space for yours. And you felt it. That specific silence after you opened up. That moment you realized you'd been replaying a conversation that the other person forgot by dinner. You've carried things for months that dissolved from someone else's memory in hours. But here's what nobody tells you. The real wound isn't their indifference. The real wound is what you built around the fear of it. Every word edited before sending. Every version of yourself quietly adjusted to be easier, softer, less threatening, more digestible. Every dream postponed because you were still waiting for someone to confirm it was worth pursuing. You weren't just seeking connection. You were outsourcing your own permission to exist. And that changes everything. Because what if the audience you've been performing for your entire life was never really watching the way you feared? What if the prison was never other people, but the invisible audience you believed was watching? The story you told yourself about how closely they were paying attention? By the end of this, you won't just feel seen. You'll finally understand why being unseen might be the most liberating thing that ever happened to you. There was a specific moment. You might not have named it then, but you felt it land. Maybe it was a birthday that passed without a single message from someone you would have never forgotten. Maybe it was a conversation you replayed for weeks, the one where you were vulnerable, where you said something real, and later discovered the other person barely remembered it happened. Maybe it was something smaller, a silence where warmth used to be, an absence so quiet it was almost polite. It didn't arrive as a dramatic betrayal, it arrived as a Tuesday, and that's what made it so disorienting. There was no explosion to point at, no villain to blame, no clear moment of rupture, just the slow, unsettling realization that what felt monumental inside you registered as background noise to someone else, that the emotional weight you carried, carefully, privately, for a long time, simply didn't exist in the same way on the other side. You were holding a story. They had already closed the chapter. The painful truth isn't that people are cold or indifferent by nature. Most of them aren't. They're just consumed by their own fears, their own loops, their own unfinished business. Everyone is quietly overwhelmed by the weight of being themselves. And in that crowded inner world, there isn't always room to hold you the way you hoped to be held. But here's what cuts deeper than the forgetting itself. You structured your behavior around not being forgotten. You showed up carefully. You measured your words. You softened your edges. You made yourself available, agreeable, easy to keep, all to protect a place in someone's attention that, in many cases, was never as permanent as you needed it to be. You were carrying something real and heavy. To them, it was just another ordinary day. And the worst part isn't that they moved on.
It's that you didn't, because somewhere along the way, being remembered became the condition for feeling like you mattered. It wasn't just the silence that hurt. It was what the silence said about you, or at least what you heard it say. Because when someone forgets you, when they don't check, when they don't return what you gave, the pain isn't purely about them. Something older activates, something that was already there, long before they arrived.
A quiet internal verdict that whispers, if they don't see you, maybe you aren't worth seeing. That's the real mechanism. And most people never examine it closely enough. From the very beginning, human beings learned to survive through belonging. Exclusion wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. To be forgotten by the group, to be cast out, to become invisible meant exposure, vulnerability, death in some earlier version of the world. So your nervous system was trained across a lifetime to treat emotional invisibility as a threat, not a disappointment. A threat, which means every unanswered message, every room that kept moving without you, every moment where you gave more than you received, your body processed those as emergencies, not metaphorically, physiologically. The shame, the anxiety, the obsessive replay, those aren't weaknesses. They're ancient alarms responding to what they were built to detect. But here's where it becomes something more than biology. At some point, you stopped just wanting to belong. You started needing external attention as evidence of internal worth. The reply wasn't just a reply anymore. The acknowledgement wasn't just courtesy. They became proof. Proof that you existed in a way that counted. Proof that the space you occupied had value. You were never just waiting for a message back. You were waiting for confirmation that you mattered. And once that equation gets installed, once your sense of value becomes dependent on someone else's attention, you don't just feel pain when they're absent. You feel erasure, which raises a question far more unsettling than the silence itself. If this has been quietly running your life, how much of who you became was never actually yours? At some point, without a single conscious decision, you took on a role, not on a stage, in real life. In every room you entered, every message you typed, every opinion you almost expressed and then quietly swallowed. You learned, through repetition, through correction, through the subtle punishment of being too much or not enough, exactly which version of you was safe to present. The easy version, the non-threatening version, the one that didn't ask for too much, didn't feel too loudly, didn't take up space in ways that made others uncomfortable. The version that could be understood at a glance, accepted without effort, kept without conditions. And you got good at it. So good that the performance stopped feeling like a performance. It started feeling like a personality. That's the part nobody talks about. The identity erosion that happens so gradually you don't notice until the exhaustion becomes impossible to ignore. The fatigue of always translating yourself before speaking. The chronic, low-grade anxiety of monitoring how you're landing in every interaction. The strange loneliness of being surrounded by people who genuinely like you, and knowing, somewhere underneath, that what they like is the curated version you worked so hard to make likable. You didn't just edit your words, you edited your desires, your timing, your ambitions, even your sense of humor. Softened, calibrated, made digestible for an audience you were never sure you could trust with the real thing. And the cruelest part of all this? The approval you were engineering so carefully, the acceptance you were working so hard to secure, required a version of you that was specifically designed to need less, want less, risk less. You were shrinking yourself to fit a space that was comfortable for everyone, except the person actually living inside it. Most people aren't living. They're managing perception, performing stability, performing likability, performing a self that was built for belonging, at the cost of everything that was genuinely theirs. But the strangest part is still ahead. The audience you kept performing for was never paying attention the way you imagined. Here's something your brain never told you it was doing. Every time you walked into a room after an awkward moment, every time you sent something vulnerable and immediately regretted it, every time you replayed a conversation at 2 a.m., dissecting every word you chose, your mind was running a simulation. A detailed, convincing, emotionally loaded simulation of how closely other people were tracking you. And it felt completely real. Because to your nervous system, it was. Psychologists call it the spotlight effect. The deeply human tendency to believe you are seen far more than you actually are. That your mistakes are cataloged. That your stumbles are remembered. That the moment you said the wrong thing at the wrong time is living rent-free in someone else's head. When in reality they were already thinking about their own wrong thing, their own stumble, their own 2 a.m. replay. Here is the mechanism nobody explains cleanly. Your memory is egocentric by design. You remember what happened to you with vivid, agonizing detail because it was yours. It happened inside your body, inside your story. But other people, they were busy being the main character of their own. Their mental bandwidth was already consumed by their own fears, their own embarrassments, their own imagined audiences, watching their every move. Everyone is performing. Almost no one is watching. The social surveillance you feared, that invisible panel of judges keeping score, updating files, waiting to use your vulnerabilities against you, was a construction, a protective fiction your mind built because once, long ago, being monitored meant you were included. Being seen meant you were safe. But that mechanism overstayed its welcome. It became the walls of a prison you didn't know you were inside. And the moment you truly understand this, not just intellectually but in your body, in your chest, something happens that feels terrifying at first. And then, almost immediately after, something even better. When the illusion finally breaks, the first thing you feel is not relief, it's vertigo. Because the fantasy that someone was watching, that someone was keeping track, that someone would eventually notice and step in, wasn't just a source of anxiety. It was also, quietly, a source of comfort. As long as you believed the audience was real, you also believed in the possibility of rescue. That if you performed well enough, someone would see the effort. Someone would acknowledge the weight you'd been carrying. Someone would finally arrive and say, "I see you. You can rest now." But when the spotlight fades and the auditorium empties, you're left standing in a silence that forces a confrontation most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Nobody is coming, not because you aren't worthy of being seen, but because everyone else is equally lost inside their own theater, waiting for their own rescue that is equally never coming. The disappointment isn't personal, it's universal, and somehow that makes it lonelier and more clarifying at the exact same time. This is the part where people split into two very different directions. Some turn the emptiness into bitterness. They decide that if nobody cares, then nothing matters. And they wear that conclusion like armor, keeping everything and everyone at a manageable distance. It feels like wisdom. It's actually just pain with better posture. Others do something harder. They grieve the fantasy, genuinely without rushing it, and then they make a different choice. They decide that if no rescue is coming, then the life they're waiting to start living cannot wait any longer. That the permission they were seeking was never anyone else's to give. Real freedom almost never arrives feeling like freedom. It arrives feeling like loss first, like standing in an open field after the walls you'd grown used to suddenly disappear, cold, exposed, unscripted, and entirely terrifyingly yours. Because once you stop waiting to be rescued, only one question remains, and it's the one that changes everything. Now what? Here's what the fear never told you about the other side. When the imaginary audience dissolves, when you stop living inside the simulation of being watched, judged, and cataloged, something unexpected opens up. Not immediately, not cleanly, but undeniably. A kind of psychological oxygen you forgot existed. Space that was previously consumed by monitoring, managing, and pre-apologizing for your own existence. Nobody is tracking your false starts. Nobody is filing your abandoned attempts. Nobody is building a case against you from the moments you tried something and stumbled before finding your footing. The person who remembers every embarrassing detail of your journey with ruthless precision is you, and only you, which means the permission you were waiting for was never locked in someone else's hands. It was always yours to give. That project you buried because you weren't sure how it would land. Nobody is guarding it. That version of yourself you kept in the background because it felt too raw, too specific, too difficult to make immediately palatable. Nobody put it in a cage. You did, out of anticipation, out of a rehearsed fear of an audience that was never as attentive as you imagined. The failure you were so afraid of broadcasting to the world. The world already moved on before you even made it. This is what nobody tells you about invisibility. It is, in equal measure, a wound and a weapon. The same absence of eyes that once felt like abandonment is the very thing that now gives you room to build without performance, to move without choreography, to become without needing to explain yourself mid-transformation. Start before you feel approved. Move before you feel understood. Build before anyone validates it. Because validation was always the slowest and least reliable compass available to you. The day you stop feeling watched is the day you become genuinely dangerous to your own paralysis. But freedom without direction is just noise. And there's still one thing left to reclaim. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with sleep. It's the exhaustion of living on borrowed terms, of making decisions filtered through what others might think, what others might approve, what others might allow without withdrawing their presence, of building a life that is technically yours but authored, in the most essential parts, by the imagined preferences of people who were never paying that much attention to begin with. At some point, that has to stop. Not as punishment, not as rebellion, as dignity. Because here is what years of outsourcing your own direction actually costs. And most people never add it up clearly. It costs you your timing. The moments when you were ready but waited for a signal that never came. It costs you your energy. The vast, irreplaceable reserves of focus and creativity quietly drained by the maintenance of a version of you designed for someone else's comfort. It costs you your voice. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, until one day, you reach for an opinion that feels genuinely yours and find the shelf unexpectedly empty. A borrowed identity will always exhaust you, not occasionally, structurally. This is not about becoming indifferent to others. Connection matters. Relationships matter. Being affected by the people you love is not weakness, and it's humanity. But there is a profound difference between being influenced by people who genuinely know you and handing the authorship of your existence to an audience that never asked for that responsibility and was never equipped to carry it. Nobody is coming to write your life better than you can. Nobody has the access, the context, the intimacy with your own interior that you carry every single moment of every day. Your life is too expensive to keep spending on spectators. Approval is a terrible compass. It points toward safety, never toward meaning. And meaning is the only destination worth the journey. Reclaim your timing. Reclaim your voice. Reclaim the wants you edited out so quietly you almost forgot they were ever yours. And when you do, something unexpected happens next. When you stop performing, something happens that nobody prepares you for. People leave, not dramatically, not with confrontation or clear endings. They simply drift. The ones who were comfortable with the curated version, the agreeable one, the available one, the one that never asked for too much, find the new distance quietly inconvenient. Without the performance to meet them where they were, the connection reveals itself for what it actually was: a transaction. Comfortable for as long as you kept paying the price. And that loss is real. Don't let anyone rush you past it. But here is what the leaving also does. It clarifies, with brutal, unexpected precision, because what remains after the performance ends is no longer a crowd. It's something rarer and infinitely more valuable. The few who stay not because you were easy, but because you were real. The connections that don't require a managed version of you as the entry fee. The relationships that can hold your actual weight without flinching. Some people will find those connections immediately. Others will move through a period of genuine solitude first. And that solitude, as uncomfortable as it feels, carries something the crowd never could. It carries truth. It carries the uninterrupted frequency of your own voice, your own instincts, your own sense of what actually matters to you when nobody is watching and nothing is being performed. And in that space, quietly, without announcement, something returns. Not the self you performed, not the self you constructed for survival, but the one that was always underneath, waiting, with extraordinary patience, for the noise to finally settle. The first reward of authenticity is not belonging, it is self-return. And that, arriving back to yourself without apology, without the permission of an audience that was never truly watching, turns out to be the most profound homecoming available to a human being. So now there is only one question left. What will you do with the life that finally belongs to you? Nobody was watching the way you feared, not the stumbles, not the false starts, not the unfinished versions of yourself you were so certain everyone was cataloging with quiet judgment. The audience was never as present, as attentive, or as permanent as the anxiety insisted it was. And that is not your tragedy, that is your liberation, because everything you postponed waiting for approval, it's still there. Everything you silenced waiting to feel safe enough, it's still inside you. Every direction you abandoned because you needed someone to validate it first, none of those doors are locked. You just stopped reaching for them. That ends now, not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready, when the fear dissolves, when someone finally gives you the signal. Now, with exactly the uncertainty you're carrying, with exactly the imperfect, unresolved, still figuring it out version of yourself that you are today. Stop performing for empty seats. Stop editing yourself for people who have already moved on. Stop living a life authored by imagined eyes that were never truly focused on you. Your life is yours, fully, finally. If one sentence in this video exposed something real in you, let that be the sentence you build from.